You know, one of the biggest mistakes we make as we grow older is assuming that what once worked for us will always work for us. We cling to habits that once made sense, morning routines, sleep schedules, little dietary rituals, and we rarely stop to ask if those things still serve the body we live in now. The human body at 70 is not the same body it was at 40 or 50. The metabolism shifts, muscle mass declines, digestion slows, and hormonal responses change. Yet the mind, out of habit and comfort, keeps repeating the same patterns, believing familiarity equals safety. This is where the illusion of healthy habits becomes dangerous. Take the banana, for example. Most seniors reach for it every morning because it feels like the safest possible choice, soft, natural, full of potassium, easy to chew, easy to digest. It's been a breakfast staple for decades, but what if I told you that this very symbol of good health can become counterproductive once your body's internal chemistry evolves? Not because the banana suddenly turns bad, but because your body's relationship to it changes. Aging is not just about growing older, it's about transformation. Your digestive enzymes shift, your insulin response becomes more sensitive to spikes, the balance of electrolytes like potassium, sodium, and magnesium fluctuates more easily. So, when we keep eating in the same way we did decades ago, we're essentially treating today's body like yesterday's. It's like using an old operating manual for a completely different machine. You might still get it to run, but not efficiently. And here's the thing, the illusion of healthy doesn't just come from ignorance, it comes from attachment. We trust what's familiar when something has been praised for years, by doctors, by the media, by family. It becomes part of our identity. I eat healthy, I eat bananas, I'm doing the right thing. That belief feels secure, and because it feels good emotionally, we rarely challenge it. But comfort and correctness aren't always the same thing. The mind seeks consistency, the body seeks adaptation. And when those two needs conflict, health begins to decline quietly. Think about this. The body's needs evolve in response to everything: stress, environment, sleep, medications, even the seasons. Yet our eating patterns often remain frozen in time. That's why so many seniors unknowingly develop deficiencies or metabolic imbalances while still believing they're eating the right way. It's not negligence, it's trust misplaced in outdated knowledge. Now, I'm not saying bananas are bad. The banana itself is not the villain here. It's the unquestioned assumption that because something was once beneficial, it will always be beneficial. There's a kind of psychological laziness that comes with aging, not in a moral sense, but in a human sense. We crave predictability because the rest of life becomes uncertain. Food, routine, small rituals, they give structure to our days. But when those structures become rigid, they start working against us. I've met so many seniors who eat in patterns formed decades ago: cereal with milk, banana with breakfast, sandwich at lunch, tea with sugar in the afternoon, and they can't understand why they feel fatigued, bloated, foggy, or restless at night. They think it's just getting old, but much of that discomfort comes from a mismatch between what their body needs and what their habits provide. The tragedy is, no one ever told them that healthy isn't a fixed label, it's a moving target. Here's the philosophical depth of it. To live well, especially in later years, you have to stay curious. Curiosity is the antidote to stagnation. It's not just about learning new facts. It's about staying open to the idea that what you believe might need revision. The people who age vibrantly are not necessarily the ones who eat perfectly. They're the ones who keep listening to their bodies, who are humble enough to question themselves. They don't worship health fads, they pay attention to feedback. So, let's return to the banana. Why do 95% of seniors eat it wrong? Because they eat it automatically. They don't think about when, how, or with what it's eaten. They don't consider how their metabolism processes it differently now. They don't recognize that what once gave a steady morning boost now might cause a mid-morning crash. The real mistake isn't the fruit, it's the autopilot. Every act of eating is a dialogue between body and mind. But most of us have turned it into a monologue. We tell the body what it should accept instead of asking what it truly needs. Aging gracefully means reversing that relationship. It means listening first, acting second. Maybe your body no longer needs that entire banana every morning. Maybe it wants a half, paired with some protein or healthy fat. Maybe it thrives on different fruits altogether. The point is not to restrict, it's to recalibrate. The same applies to all our so-called good habits. What's good depends on timing, context, and adaptation. Too much water can be harmful if your kidneys are weak. Too much fiber can backfire if your gut microbiome is imbalanced. Even rest in excess becomes stagnation. Life is not static, and neither is health. The body's wisdom evolves, but we must evolve with it. There's a subtle but profound shift that happens when you stop asking, "Is this healthy?" and start asking, "Is this healthy for me right now?" That small change in perspective transforms health from a checklist into a relationship. It invites mindfulness, observation, and responsibility. So, when I say that most seniors eat bananas wrong, I'm really saying that most people eat mindlessly. They repeat patterns that belong to a younger version of themselves, and that's the real danger of the illusion of healthy habits. Because when a habit stops serving your present self, it becomes a silent enemy disguised as a friend. The truth is, there's deep wisdom in letting go of what no longer fits, even if it once defined you. The banana is just a symbol of something larger, the comfort we seek in sameness, even when it no longer sustains us. But growth, at any age, requires re-examining the familiar, questioning the automatic, and rediscovering what truly nourishes the person you've become. And maybe that's the most powerful message here. Aging isn't about holding on, it's about refining. You don't lose vitality because time takes it away. You lose it when you stop updating your understanding of yourself. The banana doesn't need to change. You do. So, the next time you reach for one, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, not out of fear, but curiosity, is this what my body needs today? That single question could mark the difference between living on autopilot and living with awareness. You know what's fascinating about the human brain? It craves simplicity. We like things that sound neat and absolute. Bananas are healthy. Fruit is good for you. Sugar is bad. It helps us make quick decisions in a complicated world. But biology doesn't work in absolutes. It works in balance. And when we talk about bananas, especially for seniors, we're talking about a food that can either be a source of gentle nourishment or a quiet disruptor of energy, metabolism, and long-term health. Let's start with the simple fact that a ripe banana contains, on average, 18 to 20 grams of sugar. That's the equivalent of 4 to 5 teaspoons. Now, most people don't think of it that way, because we associate sugar with cakes, sodas, and candy bars. But the body doesn't distinguish between natural and added sugar as much as we like to think it does. To your cells, glucose is glucose. When you eat a ripe banana, your blood sugar spikes, insulin is released, and your body scrambles to store the excess energy. Now, if you're young and active, your body has the muscle mass and metabolic flexibility to absorb that surge without much consequence. But as you age, everything slows down, insulin sensitivity decreases, your muscles become less efficient at absorbing glucose, and your pancreas has to work harder just to maintain stability. That means what once gave you a burst of energy at 40 can now lead to fatigue, brain fog, or irritability at 70. The irony is painful. Seniors often eat bananas because they believe they're fueling themselves with something light and natural, not realizing that this very light snack can send their energy levels on a roller coaster. You feel great for 30 minutes, and then suddenly your body crashes. You get dizzy, you feel weak, you need another pick-me-up, and so begins a quiet cycle of spikes and drops that can go unnoticed for years, mistaken for normal aging. But it's not just age, it's blood sugar instability. This isn't fear-mongering, it's physiology. When your blood sugar spikes repeatedly, insulin becomes less effective. Over time, that imbalance can lead to inflammation, weight gain around the midsection, disrupted sleep, and even cognitive decline. The brain relies heavily on stable glucose levels, and when those levels swing wildly, so does your mental clarity. Think about how many seniors complain about forgetfulness, brain fog, or lack of energy. We often chalk it up to getting old. But how much of that could be nutritional imbalance disguised as natural aging? And then there's potassium, the nutrient bananas are most famous for. We've all heard that bananas are rich in potassium, and that's true. But here's what's rarely talked about. Potassium needs to be balanced with magnesium and sodium to function properly. Seniors who are on certain medications, especially for blood pressure or heart disease, often already have altered electrolyte levels. Adding more potassium on top of that, day after day without balance, can create further imbalances. What's supposed to support heart health can, paradoxically, strain it, especially if the rest of the diet is inconsistent. The problem isn't the banana, it's the context. We tend to isolate foods from the bigger picture. We say this is good, or this is bad, as if the body were a simple machine with one lever. But the body is a living ecosystem, constantly adjusting, constantly negotiating. The same banana that nourishes a child before school can exhaust a 70-year-old with slower digestion and a weakened insulin response. So why don't we talk about this? Because comfort often wins over awareness. We prefer the story that feels good to the one that demands change. There's something deeply emotional about our connection to food. A banana isn't just a fruit, it's a memory. It's breakfast with your parents, it's what you ate after a morning walk, it's what your doctor told you was safe. Challenging that belief feels almost personal. But science doesn't care about nostalgia. It cares about what your body is doing right now. And if your energy crashes after eating something healthy, that's feedback. If you find yourself yawning after breakfast, that's feedback. The body doesn't lie, it whispers. The question is whether we're still listening. Now, there's another layer here, a psychological one. Many seniors unconsciously fall into what I call the comfort sugar loop. As we age, dopamine levels naturally decline. The foods we turn to for comfort often happen to be the ones that restore that dopamine rush. Sweet fruits, pastries, or sugary drinks. The banana fits perfectly into that pattern. It's quick, sweet, and it feels innocent. But what it really offers is a fleeting sense of energy and emotional relief. The catch is that it fades quickly, leaving behind the need for more. Over time, this cycle doesn't just affect metabolism, it affects mood and emotional resilience. It's fascinating how something as small as a fruit can become a psychological crutch. When you're younger, you use food for energy. When you're older, you often use it for stability, for something predictable, something that doesn't change when everything else in life does. That's why awareness becomes such a powerful form of self-care. Awareness isn't restriction, it's liberation. It's saying, I deserve to know how what I eat affects how I feel. And this is where we shift from biology to philosophy. Health isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. The goal isn't to demonize bananas or cut them out forever. It's to understand how they fit into your current state of being. Maybe that means eating them less ripe, when their sugar content is lower. Maybe it means pairing them with protein or fiber to slow absorption. Maybe it means choosing them after physical activity instead of before bed. The key is not the banana. It's the relationship between awareness and action. There's something profoundly human about the tendency to oversimplify. We crave certainty, but certainty is the enemy of evolution. The people who stay vital as they age are the ones who keep questioning what they think they know. They don't say, "I've always eaten this way." They say, "How does this make me feel now?" That simple shift in mindset from routine to responsiveness is what separates living from merely existing. So, the next time someone tells you a banana is the perfect food, remember, perfection is context dependent. What's perfect for a child may be imperfect for a senior. What fuels one body can fatigue another. The question isn't whether the banana is healthy, it's whether it's healthy for you in this moment of your life. Health isn't a static achievement, it's an ongoing conversation, and every bite you take is part of that dialogue. Listen closely, and your body will tell you what it needs. Ignore it, and even the healthiest foods can become obstacles to your well-being. So yes, 95% of seniors eat bananas wrong. Not because they're careless, but because they've stopped asking questions. They've accepted the story without testing it against their reality. But your body deserves more than inherited wisdom. It deserves fresh attention. The truth is, your body's intelligence never fades. It just waits for you to reconnect with it. And maybe, just maybe, that connection begins with the courage to question something as simple as a banana. Because when you start paying attention to the small things, the everyday foods, the quiet choices, you start reclaiming control over the larger things, your energy, your clarity, your vitality. It's fascinating how often we think of health in terms of what we eat, but rarely in terms of when or how we eat. We obsess over ingredients, calories, and nutrients, yet overlook rhythm and timing, the two dimensions that quietly shape how the body processes everything we consume. The truth is, even the healthiest food can lose its benefit if it's eaten at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or without the right balance. And when it comes to something as simple as a banana, that truth becomes surprisingly clear. Most seniors reach for a banana first thing in the morning, often before anything else. It feels intuitive light, easy to digest, and a quick way to start the day. But here's what happens behind the scenes. You wake up after 8 hours of fasting, your blood sugar is low, your cortisol levels are rising to get your body moving, and then, boom, you flood your system with pure fast-digesting sugar. Your blood sugar spikes sharply, your pancreas releases a surge of insulin to compensate, and within an hour or two, you crash. You feel tired, maybe even dizzy, and you reach for another snack or a cup of coffee to push through the dip. The irony is that the banana you thought was fueling you actually set off a roller coaster of energy highs and lows that ripple through the rest of your day. It's not just about sugar, it's about context. When you eat a banana alone, especially on an empty stomach, it digests too quickly. There's no protein, no fiber, no fat to slow the absorption. The glucose hits your bloodstream like a wave, and that wave crashes just as fast. That's why pairing matters. When you eat a banana with something that stabilizes digestion, say, a spoonful of peanut butter, a few almonds, or a bit of yogurt, you change the whole metabolic conversation. Suddenly, your body processes it slowly, steadily. The energy lasts longer, your blood sugar stays stable, and your mood doesn't fluctuate. The same food, different result. This is where timing becomes less about rules and more about relationship. Food is not just fuel, it's information. It communicates with your hormones, your brain, and your metabolism. The timing of that communication matters. Eating the right food at the wrong time can send mixed signals to your body, like trying to tune into a radio station on the wrong frequency. You hear something, but it's distorted, For example, eating a banana before bed, something many seniors do to settle the stomach, or get a little something sweet, can actually disrupt sleep. That late sugar spike can interfere with melatonin in release, the hormone that helps regulate your sleep cycle. Your body's focus shifts toward digesting and managing glucose instead of resting and repairing. Over time, that small nightly ritual can lead to fragmented sleep, morning fatigue, and even restless legs or nighttime cramps from fluctuating potassium levels. The banana isn't the enemy, it's the mistimed message. But let's go deeper than physiology, because this is also about awareness. We often eat reactively, not intentionally. We eat because it's time to eat, because we've always done it that way, or because we're trying to manage how we feel. Food becomes a reflex instead of a relationship. The way we time our meals reflects the way we time our lives, rushed, routine, automatic. When was the last time you actually noticed how your body responded after eating something? How long you stayed full, how your energy rose or fell, how your mood shifted? Most people can't answer that, not because they don't care, but because they've never been taught to observe. And that's where things start to change when you bring in mindfulness. Imagine if you treated your meals as experiments rather than habits. You start noticing, when I eat a banana with oatmeal instead of alone, I feel more balanced. Or if I eat fruit mid-morning instead of right after waking, I stay alert longer. That small shift in observation creates ownership. You stop being a passenger in your own biology. You start driving. There's a deeper psychology at play too. Many seniors cling to rigid routines not just out of habit, but out of a need for control. Life feels unpredictable, health, relationships, the world, and food becomes one of the few things that feels stable. I eat my banana at 7 a.m., I have my toast, I take my tea. It's comforting, but it's also limiting. That sense of predictability can stop you from exploring how your body's needs have evolved. It's not the banana's fault, it's the ritual's grip. When we confuse consistency with wisdom, we stop adapting, and in health, adaptation is everything. Now, let's bring this back to the idea of pairing. Life, like nutrition, is about synergy. Nothing functions well in isolation. Not your cells, not your habits, not your relationships. A banana alone is incomplete fuel, but paired thoughtfully with protein, fiber, or fat, it becomes balanced. That's a metaphor for aging itself. You can't sustain energy, joy, or meaning alone. You sustain them through the way you combine things, your routines, your relationships, your awareness. What's fascinating is how food mirrors the psyche. The way you eat reflects the way you live. If you eat in a hurry, you probably think in a hurry. If you eat without awareness, you might be moving through other areas of your life on autopilot too. But when you slow down, when you notice what your body is actually asking for, you tap into something much more profound than nutrition. You tap into presence, and presence changes everything. When you become present, you stop treating your body like an old machine to be maintained and start treating it like a conversation partner, one that's still learning, still capable, still evolving. You stop eating based on old scripts and start writing new ones, based on who you are now, not who you were 20 years ago. The fascinating part is that this doesn't require dramatic change. You don't have to give up bananas. You just have to learn the rhythm of your body. Maybe you eat half a banana mid-morning with some almonds. Maybe you save it for after a walk. Maybe you switch to less ripe bananas to lower the sugar impact. These are not restrictions, they're refinements. Subtle adjustments that create significant results over time. Because the truth is, your body doesn't need perfection, it needs alignment. It doesn't need you to follow rigid rules, it needs you to listen. And when you align your eating rhythm with your body's rhythm, you stop fighting against time, you move with it. You age with energy instead of resistance. So, yes, 95% of seniors eat bananas wrong, but not because they're careless or unaware. They eat them wrong because no one taught them that timing and pairing are just as important as the food itself. They've been taught to value consistency over awareness, simplicity over sensitivity, but once you start seeing food as a dynamic conversation rather than a checklist, everything changes. The next time you pick up a banana, don't just ask, "Is this healthy?" Ask, "Is this the right moment for this?" That one question shifts you from routine to wisdom. Because health isn't just about what you put into your body, it's about how, when, and why you do it. And maybe that's the deeper truth about all of this. The more you learn to eat in harmony with your body, the more you learn to live in harmony with your life. Timing, after all, isn't just the secret to nutrition, it's the secret to everything. It's interesting when we talk about food, we tend to focus on nutrients, vitamins, and calories. But what we often forget is that food is also emotional. It's memory, comfort, ritual. It's the language we speak to ourselves when we want to feel safe. For many seniors, the banana isn't just a piece of fruit. It's a symbol of familiarity in a world that keeps changing too fast. It's something known, something stable, something that doesn't ask questions or demand effort. You peel it, you eat it, and for a brief moment, everything feels simple again. That's the psychology of comfort food. It's not about hunger, it's about reassurance, and the older we get, the more we seek that reassurance. Because aging, for all its wisdom and perspective, comes with loss. Loss of control, loss of physical strength, loss of people, routines, and even roles that once defined us. So we hold on to what's left. We hold on to the small, repeatable things that make us feel like ourselves. Now, the banana might seem like a trivial example of that, but it's not about the banana. It's about what it represents. The act of reaching for the same food in the same way every morning is a reflection of a deeper human instinct, the desire for stability. And there's nothing wrong with that instinct. It's what keeps us grounded. But here's where it becomes a quiet trap. When the comfort that once stabilized us starts preventing us from evolving. You see, comfort and growth rarely coexist. The foods that soothe us often anchor us in the past. They keep us emotionally safe, but physiologically stagnant. Think about it. How many of the things you eat are choices, and how many are habits? How often do you eat something simply because it's what you've always eaten? That's not nourishment, that's repetition dressed up as care. The deeper issue is that comfort foods often become emotional placeholders. When we feel lonely, anxious, or uncertain, we don't reach for kale. We reach for the things that remind us of warmth, of simplicity, of childhood. The banana fits perfectly into that role. It's soft, sweet, and requires no effort. It feels like kindness. But what we're really craving in that moment isn't sugar. It's connection. It's familiarity. It's the reassurance that we're still safe in a world that keeps changing its rules. This is where psychology meets biology. Emotional comfort creates chemical comfort. When you eat something you associate with safety, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals linked to pleasure and calm. That's why you feel good for a moment after eating your comfort food, but it's temporary. And when the effect fades, you're left in the same emotional space you started from, sometimes even lower because your blood sugar follows the same pattern: spike, dip, crash. You end up reaching for the next comfort fix, and the cycle continues. The tragedy is that this pattern looks so innocent. There's no addiction to fast food or alcohol here. It's just a banana, maybe a slice of toast, a cup of tea with sugar. Harmless, right? But what's happening underneath is that the emotional body and the physical body are feeding each other the same old story. One that says, don't change, don't question, just stay safe. And while that story feels soothing, it quietly erodes vitality. It's not about blaming yourself for wanting comfort. It's about noticing when comfort starts replacing awareness. Because awareness is the key to vitality. Awareness keeps the mind alert, the body responsive, and the spirit alive. When we stop being curious about how we feel physically, emotionally, or spiritually, we start to fade. The body becomes less of a conversation and more of a routine. So what does it mean to evolve your relationship with comfort? It doesn't mean rejecting what's familiar, it means reframing it. Instead of asking, what makes me feel comfortable, try asking, what makes me feel alive? Those two questions lead to very different answers. Comfort keeps you where you are, aliveness pulls you forward. Former soothes the body, the latter awakens it. The most vibrant seniors I've ever met are not the ones who deny themselves pleasure, they are the ones who have redefined it. They take the foods and rituals that once comforted them and reinvent them with awareness. They don't eat out of nostalgia, they eat out of intention. A banana becomes part of a nourishing breakfast rather than a nostalgic habit. A routine becomes a choice rather than a script. That shift from habit to intention is subtle but revolutionary. It's the difference between being sustained by life and merely maintaining it. Because at its core, health isn't about discipline, it's about relationship. Your relationship to your body, to your emotions, to your habits, and to time itself. When you eat something out of comfort, ask yourself, what part of me is being comforted? Is it your body, or is it your memory? Are you feeding hunger, or are you feeding nostalgia? Sometimes it's both, and that's okay, but awareness of that difference changes everything. Suddenly, eating stops being an unconscious act and becomes a form of dialogue. You begin to notice how certain foods make you feel, not just immediately, but hours later. You start aligning your choices with energy, not emotion, and here's the deeper truth. Comfort isn't the opposite of growth, it's the beginning of it. The goal isn't to eliminate comfort, but to transform it from something that keeps you stagnant into something that grounds you while you grow. The same banana that once represented routine can become a moment of mindfulness, a reminder to eat with attention, to pair it thoughtfully, to honor your changing needs instead of resisting them. That's what psychological maturity looks like. It's not about control, it's about awareness. It's realizing that the comfort you seek from food is actually an invitation to look inward, to ask, what am I really hungry for? Sometimes the answer is stability, sometimes it's love, sometimes it's meaning. And when you can tell the difference, you start feeding your life, not just your body. In a way, that's what aging gracefully truly means. It's not about maintaining youth, it's about maintaining curiosity. It's the courage to keep asking, what does my body need today? What does my soul need today? Instead of repeating yesterday's answers, the banana becomes symbolic not of decline, but of potential. The opportunity to turn automatic habits into conscious rituals and to replace emotional dependency with mindful nourishment. Because ultimately, food isn't just about health, it's about identity. It's how we express care, comfort, and continuity. But true self-care requires evolution. It asks you to love yourself enough to adapt, to honor who you were without being trapped by it. So maybe the challenge isn't to stop eating bananas. Maybe it's to stop eating them the same way, for the same reason, without thought. Maybe the real act of health is not about control, but consciousness, because in the end, comfort isn't found in what you repeat, it's found in what you understand. And understanding begins the moment you stop eating out of habit and start living out of awareness.